Welcome back, everybody. Just Mike here. Anyway, today we're going to work on that clock. Or I should say I've already worked on it, but here's the video for working on this clock. Now, the history that I can tell on this clock, I do believe it fell off the wall and possibly someone tried putting it back together again and they didn't watch my videos, I guess. And so they weren't successful on getting the clock back running again. And it took a little bit of doing for myself to get it going also. Now the movement, possibly they've cleaned it. I'm not sure on that one. I've oiled it and it seems to be working just fine. I had to actually rebuild both bellows. I thought the one was going to be fine, but just because of the age of the leather and working it a little bit, it started cracking, and I just went ahead and replaced the paper on it. And if you watch the video, you'll find the other things that I might have found wrong with it, besides gluing the case back together also. Anyway, enjoy the video. This here clock is considered after the hunt because it has the two animals that have already been shot. And nice thing about this is it's got the deer head on it and does have the horns. This is an older clock because, for one, on the dial it only says Germany. And if it only says Germany, that tells you it was before World War II. I think maybe before World War I also. Anyway, this clock, besides the different tones in it, in which if you get a clock like this, you want to, in my opinion, make sure you have the topper and possibly the pendulum, because it's going to be hard to mimic those colors to make the whole clock match. This clock comes with 3 weights, and they don't have a number on them, so I'm going to guess they're around a 400, but I'll weigh these after a bit. Anyway, it's the numbers I can tell have been changed because they're not setting in the right place. You can see a mark underneath, and also this one started falling off, so they taped it on here just so it's with the clock. So realistically, if I wanted to, I could re-glue that back on and not have to change every one of them. This here is missing one of the keepers to hold this on. It has the screws where it drops down into these clips. And like I say, it's got the nice rack on it. To measure the size of your clock, you'd be measuring the topper, and we're sitting at 11 and a half inches. And if this is on there, when you're measuring up and down, you measure to the tip of his horn, which is almost cheating, but that's what you're supposed to do, the highest point of the clock. And so we're sitting approximately 18 and a half, maybe 19 inches. This is a 1-day clock, by the way. Now, before I get there, this here horn has been glued on. That's not a good thing, because when you set it down on the face, when you're working on the back side of the clock, you're resting on the horn and there's a chance it might break off. Now this one, because of, you see where it's kind of fitted in there, the company might have had to glue it on, because you can't just slide it in like on most of your normal clocks. Then we do have, I don't know if they consider it the glass eye. It's not a piece of wood. It's an actual eye, not an eyeball. This looks like it's too tuned. I don't know if I can. I had to put the chains back on. This here says made in Germany on the back. And also, I'm thinking maybe this clock had fallen off the wall at one time because the box looks like it might be out of whack. You can see where this is cracked here. You can see a crack through the roof on one side only. And so that just tells you, make sure you hang your clock in a stud of the wall, put your nail or screw into the stud and then hang your clock, because when you're winding your clock, it's like a miniature jackhammer. With that heavy weight on there being wound up once a day, eventually that screw is going to pull out of the sheetrock. That's why you need to hit a stud. I'm not sure why they have a nail on both sides. Oh, I know why. On your clocks, normally you'll have a little nail setting out here and here. They hammered in, then clip it off so it just sticks out a little bit, that there's to actually grab onto your wall to keep the clock from tipping when you wind your clock, because most people don't know when you go to pull on your chain to wind your clock. Some clocks don't make any difference. Others, you should push this against the wall with one hand, and the other hand wind your clock, and that way it sits on the wall the way you have it in beat, tick tock, even sound, and it doesn't come out of beat when you wind one chain at a time. I also wanted to mention it's missing the blow part of the horn. We have two door locks here that lock the doors shut. If you didn't want the noise of the clock during the nighttime, you'd lock the one that has the bird in it, because the bird has to play before the music will. So it'd be good to lock that if you can't stand noise at night. Also on the side door, they have one of them, which I've never seen that before, but that's the only way this one can lock. And look at their hinges. It's not a hinge, it's just like a bird door here. So on this clock, I can pull it and it does tick. Let me get some weights on here and then I'll trigger this to see if it'll cuckoo. Now this one will not. The back hinge broke off, and so they taped it shut on the front. So I don't know if this is broken side or not, because I can fix the hinge as long as this is good. And they also disconnected it so it doesn't stop the clock from doing one coup anyway. And I got the chains back on, and so we should be able to listen to this. Give me a second. So now let me spin what I have. And you have to take the decorator nut off so I can reach, if I can. Can't get my little fingers on there. Oh, my little fingers. Okay, I can't show you because it doesn't want to turn all the way. There's something binding in here. And I don't know if I can trigger this. I don't know if it has a trigger. Let's open this up and look. that music wire is actually off, and it's on the wrong side, I think, of the bar that triggers this. Oh, maybe not, because that's the only way it'll trigger. This wire here is all in one. It triggers, it pulls the music box peg out, but it's also supposed to come up here and hold the music from playing. So we'll have to, obviously we're going to have to figure that one out. So let me take what hand's left off. I'll release the bird and I'll release the music man. Actually, I could probably leave the music man for now, because he might not come out. It'd be good if you're going to do this, take pictures to see where your bellow or your lift arms go and whatnot. So if you take pictures, that'll help you. Then we're going to go ahead and release. We'll take the screw out right there, and then it's got a nail, so it'll be easy to pop out. You take the screw out, push this in a little bit, so it gives you some room back here that you can put a screwdriver in here and finish prying it out for where that nail is. And you do it on both sides. The arms you should keep separate, or keep it with the whistle box. Normally your longer one will go on your right side, your shorter one will be on the left side, and every so often you'll find the longer one, well, you'll find them being the same. The longer one is usually on the right side. Anyway, let me get all that taken out and I'll be back with you. I'd like to take my pendulum wire off too. You just put a screwdriver in here and give it a twist. Sometimes you can come up underneath this way and pry it up. So we have it disconnected. Now I have to carefully take this out so I can bypass the music box, I guess is the way I would put it. As I goes up to just twist this and get it out. And I noticed that the cuckoo bird's tail's all broke off. It's a little bit dusty, but actually, oh, there we go. Can you see inside the movement? That dust buildup that's in there. Let's see. This one might be a good one to experiment a little bit on using the can of air to blow this thing out, because it's not necessarily greasy. I mean, I can tell it's got, at least this one gear has a big wad of dust on it. And it happens to be the one next to the chain that would be bringing extra dirt in, not counting what the pendulum opening will bring in. But looking at the gears, like I say, they all actually look what I'd consider clean. So I'm going to take this outside, blow it out with my air, and then I'll oil it and see what happens. I didn't even notice until I looked on the floor. It fell out of the box. We have this chain that goes to, I'm going to guess, a different clock. Maybe they were trying to use it as a necklace. This chain doesn't go with a cuckoo clock unless it's one that has two dancing people with this type of chain. So this is made in Germany. This says B100, and below that it says 215. I'm not sponsored by them. People are always wondering what I use for an oiler. This oiler has a spring mechanism and kind of like a plunger in here. And sometimes you have to shake it to get it going. But what you're trying to do is get that air to come up and go into here. And then it'll spit the oil out. And then it sucks it back up, and then you move on to the next one. See how much oil I got there? Now we can tell this is just a little bit dirty around the pivots. That can be wiped off. We're gonna we're gonna oil the verge too, and we're gonna do it right now so I don't forget and have to do it later. I'm gonna get my bottle of oil. Let's dip my toothpick in the bottle of oil, and I oil right where the whole palette will say where this clock ticks on. You can see a little bit of dirt there. But we're checking this out. I have to come in through here to get the other palette. And you'll have to rock the pendulum arm in order to get it to move so you can make this thing work or get the oil where you need it. Some people say don't use a Kleenex because it loses fibers. The way I look at it, Kleenex will suck up the oil much faster than, let's say, a paper towel that possibly would have less fibers. Or if you had a, what do they call it, a micro rag, there's no guarantee that thing's going to soak it up very fast because it's a rag. It's not something that'll just suck it up like this does. So that's why I use the Kleenex. This was hanging up, and I'll show you why. See, it does just fine there. When you're testing some of these movements, it's your little arms inside there. They get caught at an odd location of the star wheel, and they don't like it. And these two wires are hitting. Everything's going to need to be adjusted a little bit. I'm going to trigger this again, check that out. Watching the lift arms for the bellow. And this first one right there doesn't go up very far, so I'm going to adjust that. And what you do is you take that paddle and bend it down a little bit more. See, it moves a lot more, and that can be adjusted, but it gives you more of a leeway that you can adjust your wires or just adjust those again so they don't push as far up. It's nice to have these arms straight looking. No one's going to see it, but I'm just saying. And you can see how far that one moves that I didn't adjust. And these here are normally hooked up right here. They don't go all the way down. And so you gotta think about how long that arm is. But right now it's, let's call it cuckooing just fine. Even though we hear no noise, we're gonna check that bellows out. So why don't we do that next? I just set that in there to get this oil sealed up before I make a mistake and dump it all over everything. This is just Scotch tape they got on here. I'm trying to get off carefully, but by the looks of it I can see that bellows is shot. They took the whole paper off. Oh, it's there, but it's all glued onto here. They got to open it up backwards, I guess. So it needs a new hinge. And I can see there's a rip there. And that there looks like paper, so they made that. I'm going to take this off and I'm going to use Tyvek to make me a new bellow for this. The first thing I have to find out, is that right for it to be opening backwards? Because the angle is your hinge, and if anything this should have been turned around, so I don't know what they were thinking or doing or anything else. I mean, the hinge goes on this side, but should be opening this way. So let me take a look in the clock and see what I can come up with. I just looked in the clock and I was right. The hinge is supposed to be here and it needs to open this way. I have other videos, or I have a specific video on doing tie-back paper, so I'm not going to do it on this clock, but I am going to put tie-back paper on here. I was wondering why this music box sounded so nice. There's approximately, if not 30 teeth going across, so that way it actually has more tunes to play to make the melodies sound much nicer. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and put the chains on here, and that way I can install it in the box and see just how well it does. On the wax job, I let this set overnight and then I went ahead and buffed it with a soft cloth. And actually, after using the Howard's wax, I normally just leave it alone. After buffing it, this here started to shine up. And actually, because of the paint on here, I don't mind this one shining up like it did. So it's good to look over the movement. Like I say, this in here, I was kind of suspecting it fell off the wall because of the box of the clock was coming apart, we'll say. But it doesn't hurt to check out your movement and everything. This here wire is triggered when the cuckoo bird comes out. It'll cock this and that's what makes the music will say get ready to start or whatever. There's a spring wire here that it was clear up here, and obviously it's not going to do anything there, so that's why I say just pay attention to your wires. This here goes underneath there, and that's what helps this thing trigger and come back into place. Other than that, looks like everything's almost okay. You notice this here? It's really squished together. That there is more than likely caused from when it fell off the wall. The pendulum, the wire that the pendulum swings on, jammed up, that hooks into here, and caused this to go sideways and smash it closed. And so that needs to be opened up. The other thing, if you don't open it up, your pendulum might start swinging, let's say, crooked. Get this down here so I can get a hold of it. That's a little bit better. So let me go ahead and install this in the box. I'm going to go ahead and install, whoops, wrong side. Install this, because it looks to me like this here is bent out way too far. That's not way too far. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at all my rods, trying to tuck them in, but have them out far enough. And I was worried this here, oh there, I have to put a level on this and see, but I think it's supposed to be bent in a little bit further. Like I say, when this fell off the wall, this might have jammed upwards and messed everything up. And this has a tweak look to it. Let me do some adjusting on this thing. This here looks like it's crooked, not setting right. So let me take a look at this and see if I can get it adjusted okay. So I put a level just on the snail here, so I needed a rough estimate. And I feel I got this where I wanted it. I got my 2 lift arms in there, and I'll of course have to check once I get them hooked up that they're going to miss each other also, which they should. I had to take the movement out again because I was having a problem. This here nut that turns the hands, I couldn't turn this with my bare fingers. I had to use the pliers. What I came up with is this shaft here. Someone smashed it in right on the end here to where it was holding on here and it froze the clock up, and that's why the minute hand was broke off, is they tried turning that poor little plastic hand and it busted. So what I did is I finally got this pried off of here, and I filed inside the tube, and now it's loose enough it'll spin. So now I have to put it back in the clock. So the hands for this clock, I only had the one with it. I happen to have ivory colored, which is fine with me. The numbers, I was looking at this, we're still missing the 5. And they're all popping off anyway. So we're going to peel these things off and put new numbers. They're ivory colored also. And for sure this clock had fallen off the wall because all the little teeny things I've had to do. And depending on what they glued these on with, on some of these I might have to, some of them come off good. This here needs to be re-nailed on also. The nail's missing and it flaps up and down. So we'll get that nailed on too. And I say these numbers because maybe I'll have another clock that's missing one of the numbers that I happen to have here. And so that'd be a good thing. So the way I put numbers on, for right now, I'll move this hour hand out of the way. I've got them all lined up the way they're supposed to be. I get a toothpick and I try to get just on the, whoop, got a little bit too much glue on my toothpick. It don't take much. I'm just putting a dot on the bigger parts if I can. And then I set it in place. And glue will dry, normally clear. Or at least you should be able to see it. I'm going to put my minute hand on now, so I can pinpoint my hour where it is. So now I got that hand on. I'm going to bring this around, put it on the 12, and that's telling me right where my number 1 is supposed to be. And I'll do that all the way around. My hour hand didn't fit I had to carve the hole a little bit bigger. I got a little bit carried away. It goes on fine, but it goes too far down. So I'm going to take a little bit of super glue. What I'd normally do, let me move this light out of my way. What I normally do is I'll add super glue to the inside of my hand, and then we'll let that dry. And what that does is actually just kind of like fills it in again. And if you have to carve a little bit again, just be a little more careful. So it's great to get this clock back on its feet. I didn't realize when I first started working on it that this poor clock fell off the wall. Possibly someone might have tried to fix it, but they weren't very successful. And as I showed you at the end where the hands wouldn't turn, and actually I didn't show you it, but you had to take my word for it. And filing that out, the barrel for the hour hand, and well, the barrel for the hour hand, which is actually the snail, filing that out made the clock move again. Anyway, if you appreciate this video, because I enjoyed working on this clock, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, because it's free. And until next time, God bless.